everybody, it's Katie with Embody Daily, and today I'm here with Ashley. Ashley is a fellow TSMer who we actually just connected with each other, and you so graciously accepted my offer to be interviewed about your experience. So thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Awesome. So I guess just to begin with, I guess can we start with you telling us when you started on the Sinclair Method and how long you've been practicing the method?
I started Sinclair Method May 5th of 2017.
Okay.
So I'm coming up on my 2-year mark.
Awesome. So you have some experience and perspective under your belt that you can definitely speak to today.
I hope so.
So let's get started with, can you just tell me and tell us a little bit about your history with drinking and alcohol, and when was it that you noticed it was starting to become an issue?
Um, I think as far back as I can remember, I always associated drinking as being cool. Um, the first experience that I can think back to, I invited this guy that I barely knew, but I knew he was kind of like a bad boy type from my school bus. I invited him over to drink some beers. That was something that I regularly did, and I had never even sipped beer at that point. So we came over, we hid behind my grandmother's car, stole a couple of her beers. He's drinking his, and I'm making excuses why I'm not drinking mine. And then when he wasn't looking, I poured it out. And in hindsight, that process, that wanting to be a part of, and that carried over into high school because I remember high school parties kind of creeping off and pouring out my beer that I was drinking then. So it's always
Wow.
something that I wanted to be a part of, but it's almost like maybe I subconsciously knew that I was playing with fire from the beginning.
Wow. That resembles a lot of my experience too. Like I really didn't like drinking for a long time, and it was just to kind of fit in until it got its hooks in me. So at
That's
what point, yeah.
it seems to be a common thread. You mentioned when did I see it becoming an issue? Um, I think the same need to be accepted socially translated into I was always very awkward socially. So I gravitated towards the people who were easiest to hang out with, and that seemed like it was always that fringe drug alcohol crowd. So I started getting into trouble really early on in life with the law, and that eventually led to me at 18, 19. I went to jail for 3.5 years.
Wow.
3.5 years. Um, my high school sweetheart had a child during that point. Got out, lost contact with her, but it was once I was released and dealing with the probation parole issue and trying to circumvent the drug testing that I really started to lean more heavily on alcohol as opposed to my drug of choice, which was marijuana.
Wow.
And it really started to ramp up at that point. And even in 2008, when I got off parole, I found that it was then that I noticed that it was an issue. Even though I could now smoke marijuana daily again, the alcohol was there in the back seat with me all the time, and it was something that just kind of progressively got worse and worse.
Wow. So it went on for almost 10 years like that until you found the Sinclair method?
Yes, I mean I can't tell you the amount of opportunities and jobs and careers and things that I've just destroyed as a result of that. Just being so um, I can't think of the word, but just
Destructive? Uh,
unpredictable, in that I have this great job, but self-destructive is a great way to describe it. But it definitely didn't seem to be a cognizant choice that I was making. Like it's time to screw my life up. Everything would just be going great, and then I'd show up for work drunk. And um, in 2015, my girlfriend slash fiance of 8 years left me, and although she never said the word specifically, I know that it was a result of just that guy that I would become when I drank too much. And in my mind, it was her fault because she was pressing those buttons. You know, I was cool around my friends drinking, but you just know how to press my buttons. You make this guy that I don't want to be. So she left, and when she left, I hooked back up with my high school sweetheart. She came back into my life, which opened up the potential for fatherhood again and being a family guy. And I told myself, well, it's time. It's all me not being able to be around my daughter because of the life that I was living
Mhm.
always really kind of bothered me inside. I don't know if that was one of the reasons that I was self-medicating, but now like I had everything in front of me, everything that I'd always wanted was there. And my the ex-girlfriend of 8 years left me in April. We were getting married in August. I moved to be with her in October. And all this time between August and October, I'm living alone in a different city. She's coming to visit me almost every weekend, but I'm trying to kind of cut back on my drinking. And in my mind, as soon as I moved, that was going to be it. I was going to stop the drinking, try to still maintain a little marijuana usage as I could, just so that my children didn't know about it. And that didn't turn out to be the case at all. So it was 2015 to 2016 was a rough time for both of us.
Wow. So you had kind of, I mean, obviously tried to moderate or cut back before getting on the Sinclair method. So what was that experience like for you?
To actually get on the Sinclair method, or
Just
trying to moderate without.
yeah, trying like you were saying you were gonna plan to give it up and you couldn't.
Right.
Like, what was that experience like?
I would start out really, really gung ho, just really researching and whatever it was that I was trying at the time, whether it was AA or mysticism or religion, or I even got on this method one time that was like really high dosages of vitamins, niacin and vitamin C and B, and that worked for a short period of time. Like my cravings dropped, probably because my liver was crying in my knee somewhere, trying to process all this stuff. But
Yes.
it would always be a very short-lived 2 weeks kind of max thing. I'd be sober, and that 2 weeks would come, and then that voice would start in my head. Well,
Yeah.
you can just have one. You working hard. You can drink like everybody else, and then you know.
Yep. I think I can relate. I think maybe a lot of people watching can relate as well. So, then how did you learn about the Sinclair method?
It just kind of popped up on a Google search one day. I'd probably gotten off of work, frustrated with the way things were. I mean, it was a roller coaster life at home between sleeping in my car because my wife kicked me out or whatever. I mean, it just got really bad there towards the end um, of that lifestyle for me. Um, um, right around New Year's of 2016, I left, got in an accident. There was a big fight that night. So January of 2017, I entered a 90-day treatment program in-house. Um, really gung ho about it while I was there. Got out, stayed sober for a while, and then that same kind of destructive snowball effect kicked
Mhm.
in. So it was, I'd say, um, January of 2017 ish, roughly, that I ran across the Claudia's
Yeah.
TED Talk and got really gung ho about that. We really researched it. Like I went deep into Pavlov's dog, and like I knew I had everything. I had everything. I got all my little facts. I downloaded the video, and I talked to my wife, and I was like, "Look, I really like this. Watch this with me tonight." And we did. She was understandably very skeptical. I think she was at that point. She was just so tired of having her hopes shattered that was just another opportunity to have hope shattered. I think I mean, that documentary is like 58 minutes long. That's a, she fell asleep and rolled over and fell asleep on it because it was just such an outlandish concept
Yeah.
that drinking could lead to extinction of that alcoholism entirely.
Hmm.
But I found a TSM approved doctor on the C3 website. Luckily,
Hmm.
he was like 15 minutes away from me,
Wow.
right? I mean, I've
Yes.
talked to people that have flown across the country
Yes.
to get doctors, and he was right there. Saved the money. He didn't take insurance. It was like $300 to go see him. We went and saw him together, and he seemed pretty impressed with the background knowledge that I had on it.
Yeah.
And he was very down to earth. I think he presented it to my wife in a way that made her have faith in it, which I'm lucky because she was really my only support system
Hmm.
once we got started on it. And yeah, that's kind of how we got started on it. A chance
Wow.
meeting.
That's that's incredible. So that was almost 2 years ago now.
Yes.
What has the experience been like so far for you, and even for your wife too, if you want to speak to that?
Yeah, not not long after we got on it, I would say what I would consider for pharmacological extinction to have occurred. We met a couple on Facebook that were going through similar things to us, and he was one of those that was about to fly across the country to get the medication. They just had a new child, and she was very, very skeptical of DSM as well. So my wife really had that common history with her,
Mm.
and she was working with the wife, and I was working with the husband. And what was your question?
No, no, you're answering it. Just what the experience was like for you and your wife, even too, as you kind of got started on the method.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The I was leading up to say that my one of the things I recall my wife telling the wife of the couple was that I know it sounds incredibly crazy of a
Mm.
concept, but if I had to do it again, if I had to, I would travel the world over to get this medication for my husband. So that's where she stands on it. For me, I've been really fortunate in that I know that the process is different for everyone.
Mhm.
But for me, I don't know if my brain was just so tired of rebuilding and destroying and rebuilding and destroying that when I got the naltrexone in my hand, my brain just said, "Okay, dude, do what you want with me. Like I'm just gonna lay down and let you do your thing." Like there was no fight.
Oh.
There was no. A couple weeks in, my wife, like I would sometimes get like we had an agreement from the gate that like I would only drink at night once the kids were in bed. So, start that about 9 o'clock and I would drink, and that would be my extinction session.
Mm.
But about 2 weeks in, I was justifying extinction sessions on the way home from work.
Mm.
And she had a hard time calling me on my BS, but she was like, look, I know this process is ultimately yours, but it's just really concerning to me. I feel like you're using the medication as an excuse to drink. And I took that, I processed it, and it seemed like that was the turning point that my mindfulness of the craving and answering it or not answering it really started to play into the method alongside just the method itself. Like I started to involve and engage in it,
Mm.
not just be a passive, take a pill, out to drink. And that's when I really started to see the success was from that point on.
Wow.
And
So,
I would say 2 months in, 3 months in. And again, I need to, I want to stress so much that not everyone has that same extinction time frame, but I was done.
mm,
I, I was done. Like it was no longer an issue at all. And I found throwing myself into my work helped a lot, but Looking back, I have been so very fortunate at how easy it was to get the medication and how quickly it had the desired result.
Wow. So I think what you're saying about that mindfulness piece is a place where a lot of people get tripped up because they do rely on the medication just to do all the work. And I wondered if you could speak, kind of giving an example of how your mind worked and how you worked through that experience of when you first started to be mindful, and kind of what was going on in your head and an experience for you, um, for perhaps people to learn from your experience and how they might employ some of these practices or techniques or ways of looking at it that you used for yourself.
Okay, cool. Um, I think that I found it ultimately important to me, and I know generally it's important to target the craving itself. And just for instance, when I would be at work and you know everyone's got their rituals and like there's almost like this American kind of put in a hard day's work and have a cold beer after it's over. Like I was falling into that. And but was that actually a craving, or was that me being opportunistic and using that truth of our culture as an excuse to drink?
Mhm.
So I looked at that, and on examination, I felt that the answer to that question was actually that it wasn't a craving and it was just my addictive behavior trying to be opportunistic. So I kind of stepped back and I said, okay, well, maybe I'm wrong in this assumption. You tell me what it is. So rather than keep my medication on me, which is what I was doing initially, I started to leave it at home. So if I'm having this craving or um, advantage taking kind of behavior, let's at least give myself the time to get home, then to take the pill, then wait an hour. Like I just felt like maybe that time that I would spend between having the thought, man, a beer would be nice when I got off, to actually getting off and then buying the beer on the way home and getting home. Would that craving still be there when I got home and it got time for me to take that pill? And I found that more often than not, yes, I had the craving or I had the thought by the time I got home and life kicked in again. And now I wasn't an employee, I was a father and a husband. That honeydew list, which never gets any shorter, kind of kicked in, and the that I didn't crave a drink anymore. And whereas when we first started the process, I didn't like this was an every night thing. Like I was almost forcing sessions that okay, first night drink, take the pill, drink. Second night, take the pill, drink. Kids are in bed, take the pill, drink. But by this point, I was more trying to target rather than force. And I started to see, well, wow, the medication must be working. Like I'm not thinking about alcohol all the time. And it's only a random thought that crosses my mind as I'm getting off of work. And maybe that's not even a craving. Maybe that's just an addictive personality saying you deserve that buzz, and I found moving forward from that I was almost able to gauge craving versus desire. And I think those are actually two very different things.
Yes, you did such an excellent job speaking to that, hearing from your own experience of making that distinction. I think that's really important for a lot of people because it does start to feel more like you're saying, it's just a thought. It's not really this urge and craving. And when you take time to examine it more, like you are describing that you did, it's amazing how just getting yourself in a different environment can, like, oh, the thought's not there anymore. So I really appreciate you for speaking to that in such detail that you did. Um, so can you describe what it was like for you drinking on naltrexone? Are you still drinking now after 2 years?
We went out last night. I had some friends from Austin come in to play here in New Orleans.
Mm.
So that was we went out. I had a shot of tequila with my buddy, the drummer. 2 beers to follow that. I had a pretty healthy buzz going, and I didn't feel the need to drink anymore. I'm typically like, if me and my wife go out, like she's got yearly Christmas parties and like this summer event she goes to. Typically, she'll drink and I don't. Last night I drank and she didn't because she was just kind of like, "Baby, you need to have fun. Just go have fun."
Yeah.
But it, drinking on naltrexone now is something that I'm not driven to do. But I find that in my line of work, sometimes that restaurant, have some drinks with the clients kind of thing is almost expected.
Yeah.
And I appreciate naltrexone giving me that option as I approach my career. And but drinking, I haven't found that, like, I don't miss that endorphin rush. It was all I wanted and all I chased before the naltrexone and the Sinclair method. But now drinking is what it is. Yes, there's an end result that you're striving for, but it's very clear that it's just a buzz. It's just an alleviation from the alcohol. And when you start to feel that, there's no need to go any further because you're already there. You got what you wanted. Whereas before, that buzz would kick in, the endorphins would be released, and I was off the races. Like I could not stop. I would justify another drink until I was on the floor. My brain would still be justifying when I could no longer justify.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yes. So I want to
So
ask.
you'd ask me how is drinking different. I don't find that it's different in any aspect other than I don't have that manic, oh my God, this is the last time I'm ever gonna get to drink. Give me all the booze type mentality anymore. And that was definitely present before and it's absolutely not present.
Hmm. Did you always have a clear kind of off signal when you got started on the Sinclair method and the naltrexone? Because I hear from people who feel like they can drink through the naltrexone and their old tendencies, like you're describing, like give me all the booze. People will still have that experience even on the naltrexone. And I'm curious if you've had that experience, or if not, how do you know when you're done drinking on the naltrexone?
I I think all of us can call back a time before our use disorder kind of got the best of us. We knew when to quit drinking. Like there was just a time. I feel like there were two types of drinking back then. There was I'm like Animal House style, like we're just gonna booze it up tonight. We're just gonna drunk. There was that drinking, and then there was, hey, you want to go have a couple drinks or whatever, and you go and you'd have your couple drinks, and that would be it. And then somewhere along that way, that couple of drinks turned into, I don't remember anything from last night. God, did I do something to embarrass myself, kind of thing. But now Trexone allowed me the opportunity to experience drinking as I did years ago. Like, do I? Is there a clear signal that says, hey, it's time to stop? There obviously is because I stopped, but it's not so much of a cognizant kind of thing. Like, yeah, if anything, it's a fear of ever going back to that guy that woke up the next morning not remembering. So if there's an off button for me, it's this doubting voice in the back of my head that says, are you kind of getting to the point where you might say something stupid? And I go on to shut it off at that point. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. So, I know you've spoken a little bit about how your life has changed since going on the Sinclair method, but can you tell us a bit more about kind of your life before and now, and what have been some of the biggest changes through this method as it relates to your drinking? And, often drinking impacts everything in our lives, so a lot of other things change as well. So I'd just love to hear from you about what this experience has been like.
Sure. Um, before Naltrexone and before the Sinclair Method, um, my life had become building and destroying, building and destroying. Um, the 3.5 years that I spent in jail for years after and until the Sinclair Method, my biggest fear was going back to prison. Like, that was the worst thing that I can imagine. And it just so happened that when I started on the Sinclair Method, I was in a transitory point in my life where I had just gotten fired from another job. Um, so as I started the Sinclair Method, I was interviewing. Then I got a job days in. And so as I'm starting the Sinclair Method, I'm starting a new career, and it just kind of continued to build. And I'd say now I don't even think about jail anymore because that's just not like I'm not going to do anything to put myself in that position. And my biggest fear today would be to lose my career. Like if I woke up tomorrow and it was just gone and I had to start from ground level again, like the thought of that literally instills fear in me.
Mhm.
Um, my name is respected throughout the state. My my kids before the Sinclair Method, um, there was one point where they were in fear of me, even though I was never physically abusive with them. Just the yelling and the screaming behind closed doors between my wife and I,
Mhm.
they were very standoffish with me. And if you looked at us now, we're that typical American family, and with no no dark shadows once you close the door. Like I can engage with my children in a way that I couldn't before because I feel like my self confidence in who I become didn't allow me to positively take a stance on anything with them because I don't know, just my pride in myself and my confidence in myself are through the roof. And I don't even think I knew what that was. Like I wore masks before the Sinclair Method, and now I'm me. The Sinclair Method has allowed me to be me, and I'm proud of who I am. People like me, and I, I mentioned I think at the start of this video that self-esteem had always been an issue for me, and that need to be socially accepted, which ended up getting me in trouble. Like I found out that I was always that person that I thought I was. I was just self-medicating to the point that that person could thrive. You know,
You speak to that so well. Like I can certainly relate exactly what you're saying, especially the masks, like alcohol almost in excess, like required that because there was so much shame around it, and the misuse of it.
absolutely.
So I want to go back a little bit because you were saying that you threw yourself into your work a lot as kind of like something to do other than drinking. And I know that's something people struggle with when they get to that place where, okay, I'm not craving as much. Now, what do I do? And I've seen people kind of stay in the habit of drinking, like you were talking about, like kind of dissecting, is this a craving or is it just a thought? So, do you have any advice or things to speak from your experience about how somebody might, you know, begin to do other things other than drinking when they don't really know what else to do with themselves because they've been in this habit of drinking for so long?
I I would just advise that now that the that alcoholic merry-go-round rat race type lifestyle isn't so much an issue, and you no longer have to apply the mindfulness that you applied so heavily, exhaustingly to your cravings and targeting of those cravings to start to use that mindfulness to get in touch with who you are and who you've been burying for so long. Um, I found out that I'm actually a rather skilled mechanic, and I had no idea I was. Like, and I like writing, and you know, gaming I always did enjoy, but there, there's a creative side to me that I didn't know existed, and it finding that out was a result of applied mindfulness techniques. But at the same time, well, it was that. It was mindfulness. I was going to say it's just being always open to the possibility of who am I? Because I think, if we're in this boat together, and it's ironic how all our stories are almost identical.
Yes.
Like if we're here now and my God, this miraculous, crazy method that everyone looks at you and says, do what? Now that it has allowed us possibility to have our lives back, we start getting that back. How, who am I? Like, I don't have to stand up in a room anymore and say, my name is Ashley. I'm an alcoholic. So who am I? If I don't have that label, who am I? And the 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 universe is much more obliging to showing you the answer to that question if you just open yourself to listen and seek that. And that's a process I feel that we'll be on until the day we die, and that's great because then we might get bored. God forbid, go back to old ways, but life is great. Life is crazy on its own accord, and who's got time for
Yeah, you explain that so well. And it's like an uncovering of gifts that are within all of us and begging to be expressed. And alcohol just like numbs it, like it prevents it from ever being expressed. So being able to ask yourself, who am I? Like, yeah, there's so much to be uncovered.
It's
So,
it's it's so heartbreaking when you think, I spent my time in religion, and different ones have different theories and tales, but they all come back to like this Satan being the father of lies. And like if there is a Satan walking this earth, he's in a bottle and his name is Jack. Like that I don't know. It just that bottle lied to me for so many years and told me that I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that. I was the victim. Like everyone else in life had wronged me, and I deserve this drink. And I don't know, man. It's just it's so heartbreaking is one way to describe it. And other times it just pisses me off that I wasted so long listening to this voice that, like I thank God for this work that but I I want to speak on something that I ran across in the groups last night. And I feel that just happenstance, I was lucky in the sense that it was not planned, but my choice was always whiskey, always. Like I never really been a big beer drinker. And I say it was happenstance, but it was my wife. Like the when I introduced this to her, and she was like kind of more than not feeling like this was just an excuse for me to drink. Because I had spent a lot of time trying to convince her that look, you just don't press my button. Home and have a couple beers, just don't mess with me. Like I can drink like everyone else. She knew that not to be the case, and I think she suspected that maybe I was trying to use this as a segue into that. And just from the beginning, it was part of our agreement that that drink following the pill would be beer, but it wasn't necessarily planned that way. And I read the book, but like, and I just that part of it being suggested that we not imbibe in hard spirits and that if we do the that that extinction and the TSM actually being as effective as it can be could be somewhat muffled.
Hmm.
It may not be as effective. Wasn't an active thought. It wasn't on my radar. But thank God, like it just worked out the way it did. That I wasn't taking the pill and drinking whiskey or vodka, or and because I see that it could be very easy to overdrink the pill. And when like when I think of that term, overdrink the pill, like I automatically hearken to this thought. Although I never took hand abuse, I've heard these stories about these guys that take the hand abuse. So now they're like a bear with their leg in a trap. They want to drink, but it's making them sick. So I guess the sickness doesn't allow you to really enjoy the buzz. So like they would just drink these massive amounts of booze and then get to a point where they were buzzed. So when I think of overdrink the pill, I think about that as what that is that, but I don't think it is. I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but overdrinking the pill is just allowing yourself to, especially with hard spirits, unintentionally more often than not, reach a point where the medicine can't block the endorphins anymore, and then that endorphin kicks back in, and you're like, oh, dang,
Hmm.
that's what I wanted. And I see the danger in that. Absolutely, I do. So I am just blessed that that was not something I had to deal with. But I see how that could be a very dangerous way to approach that.
Yeah, and I've actually over the course of, the couple years I've been making videos, I hear from people who, they read the book or they know that they shouldn't drink the hard stuff, but they still are, because it's their drink of choice and they can't imagine drinking something else. And I'm just wondering, you said you were drinking whiskey. Was it easy for you to just start drinking beer all of a sudden, or what might you say to somebody who can't get off the whiskey or the vodka?
Again, I, that's real. Like I don't know. I feel like it's almost dangerous territory to start hypothesizing on that because
Yeah.
like it's almost like you could say that, well, I was just ready kind of thing, but that's not fair to put that kind of label on someone. Like
Hmm.
I think my wife, like her big thing is, and even the psychiatrist who prescribed the medication to me said, you have to want it. I've given this medication to people and they just, I guess they didn't want it and it didn't work for them. But if you, if I were to be starting this all over again, realizing how fortunate I was to find a doctor willing to prescribe it, to have all of these tools at my disposal, the support system that actually exists in you guys and Sinclair Method Warriors, like everything is there that can allow me to overcome something in a way that the world as a whole doesn't think can be done. Like all of that, like get a beer, like just try it. Like like you'll still get the buzz, and it might not be that real quick, intense kind of buzz that you're used to as a hard spirits drinker and one that preferences that. But it's just a part of it. If you're willing to do everything else right, it's almost you have to view that as part of it. Like if you can take that, the golden rule is take the pill, wait the hour, but that should be part of the golden rule too. Like you got to make the decision to switch to beer or
Yeah.
wine or whatever. I think it's important because that possibility exists. You're 6 months in, like you're right there, like you're doing so great, and then you just happen to be at a bar and anybody says, hey, you want one more shot? And you do it and it bumps you past that, not even expecting to do so, not maliciously, but now you release those endorphins and I don't know, are you back to square one? Or are you not? Like, at the very least, you've put a stumbling block in your way that we don't deserve to have that.
Mm. Yeah.
I didn't find, you would think I would, but I didn't find that I was being neglected by not being able to have the whiskey that I was used to. And, being an everyday drinker at one point now, I would say for the totality of 2018, I probably drank socially 8 times. Let's say
Wow.
8 to 10 times, 8 to 10 times. And of those 8 times, 8 to 10, let's say 10. Of those 10 times, 5 of those times were Bloody Marys. Like I like Bloody Marys. So I was drinking hard spirits, but I think by that point, which was roughly a year in, it it didn't that voice was still there to say, hey, you're where you need to be
Mm.
and stop. So I don't feel like, in the same way that when I was going to AA and I resented the fact that I couldn't drink like everyone else, the 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 requisite that's there that you should start off TSM on a softer level
Mhm.
doesn't always have to be in place. I feel once the method has worked and you've reached that extinction, and the decision is yours to do as you have done and just take on full sobriety as a choice, or if you want to continue to drink and employ the method in tandem, that at some point the option becomes available to you to drink mixed drinks. I probably would never say just start taking shots ever again, but if you're honest with yourself, I think you would be able to see that you don't. Why try to reach a point that quick? We're not teenagers anymore. We don't have to prove to our buddies that we can drink them under the table.
Yes.
Or maybe someone watching this is a teenager and you don't have to prove that.
Yeah. Bottomless pit, never going to get you anywhere. Yeah, I can relate to that. I think for me too, because I did like mixed drinks, but I was mostly a wine drinker, but I too loved whiskey and kind of vodka mixed drinks. And the further in I was on the method, I would allow myself to have like one mixed drink that it would be a tall drink and I'd sip it and just have that awareness. But yeah, I do feel it's risky when people start this method with their glass of whiskey every night. I'm just like, caution, but yeah, it's up to the individual. And I appreciate you speaking from your experience on that and realizing that you can't, your experience isn't everything, it's your experience, but I think hearing from you might plant seeds in others to reflect on their own experience and what may or may not work for them.
Hopefully so. That it
So
would be my hope that that would be the case. But everyone's journey is their own, and it's a beautiful thing that that's the case. But you know, there are people who've come before us, like Claudia, and there are other warriors there that you know, just like when we were teenagers and we didn't want to listen to our parents because they don't know anything. Like I know best. You know, kind of read those guideposts that have been put in place for us. That we're blessed that that's there and take advantage.
mhm. What might you say to somebody who might be watching this, who's considering the Sinclair method for themselves, or they're just getting started, or they're having troubles with it? Like, what might you advise someone who's just in the beginning phases of this method based on what your experience has been?
If you're questioning whether it can work,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it likely will work. Um, but again, there's a method. It's called a method for a reason, and you can't take a proven scientific method and try to make it your own. Um, there's leeway there as far as personalizing a method, I think, but a method's a method, and just stick with what's been shown. So I would definitely recommend it. What would I tell someone who's just getting started on it? Don't be too hard on yourself. your brain is a unique thing that we all have our own personal traumas that we've been through. And the landscape of my brain is totally different than yours, Katie. And it's likely everyone's is it's like a fingerprint. Don't use the time frame that someone else, don't use their journey as a total indication of what yours should be and as a measuring stick for how well you're doing. Just follow the guidelines, follow them religiously, never break that golden rule, and your life could totally change. I mentioned earlier, I went from a guy who had nothing to having everything to having nothing, and almost finding comfort in that struggle
Hmm.
to there's a road out of that hell that we've lived in for so long. The answer is there, and you know, doubting family members, I'm sure, can be an issue. Again, the same information that led you to the decision to take on this lifestyle and try this this course of action against this disease, the same information that led you to that decision, just be patient with them and let them make that decision on their own. um, but it's there if they want to educate themselves, and it's really hard. I see people a lot of times have trouble with GPs and doctors wanting to not wanting to prescribe the medicine, but it seems like if they'll get out of their own way, and hopefully you're not dealing with someone who's just very egotistical and won't take hard science when it's staring them in the face.
Hmm.
Those doctors can be swayed to go on and in turn prescribe that medication, and your family would be the same way. I would think you present them with the hard whole facts that this could work and this is why. That support will hopefully come, but if it doesn't,
Yeah.
strike out alone, because the life that we want, it's there. It can be gained again.
Yeah.
And guess what? Like I don't have to go. Like I have a life now, Katie. Like I don't have to. Like yes, I was sober, and when going to AA and stuff like that, and that I'm thankful for that. But I never even got to spend any time with my family because I was just from one meeting to another, and oh God, there's a big book study, and I got to go to that, and then I'm working, I'm making money, and I'm throwing it in the basket every time, and feeling guilty if I didn't. Like, like you can have a life again. Like the amount of time that I miss from my kids and my wife, just trying to maintain sobriety, just the time I spend with them now is insane. Like life can totally change, and it will give it a chance to work.
Yes. I love that you speak to that because that was a lot of my experience when I was sober. I would be sober and everything would look great, but it was like such an internal conflict and struggle, and so much energy pointed toward just not relapsing and staying sober. And it was awful. Like I was like, I'd rather be drinking than try to maintain sobriety. And that's what the biggest gift of the Sinclair method is. Like sobriety is amazing with the Sinclair method. It's like life is so beautiful when you're not being met with incessant alcohol cravings or resisting it. So yeah.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. Like with the AA and the 12 steps, it's almost like you put this stamp on yourself for the remainder of your life that I'm an alcoholic and this is who I am. And although that's something that yes, that's something that lurks within us, and if at any point we choose to stop using a method that has been shown to work and has worked in us, we want to just throw caution to the wind, we can get back to that point. But Naltrexone and the Sinclair method allowed us an opportunity to say for the first time, no, I'm not that. I'm not an alcoholic. It's that was another rat race that I'm so fortunate to have been able to get off of. And to this day, like every now and then I'll be like, man, I'd really like to go to a meeting and just talk to people about, Naltrexone and but it's so unfortunate that the same big book that tells you that you'll be a lifetime addict and you'll never recover and you can maintain, but you're gonna be this for the rest of your life. That very same book says, and I'm paraphrasing, but it basically says science has not achieved this yet, but it may someday achieve this, which is an answer to alcoholism other than just giving your life to a giving your life to that rather than where it should be with the family. Now an answer is out there. Medical science has found that answer, and you walk into an AA meeting and tell them that, oh my God. Like I've done it and I've got the looks and I almost felt like Frankenstein running away from that meeting. They were behind me with the torches, like, get out of here. And it's it's sad to see that. Like, wow. Like it's frustrating, you know. I want to get the word out there so bad. Like I've done a Craigslist post one time about like, do you want to stop drinking? But nobody answered it, you know. Work, working with that family on Facebook that time, that was rewarding, but I'm happy to have found the groups. I really am. I'm looking forward to being active. It's cool.
Awesome. And I want to go back for a minute to something you were saying earlier about finding comfort in that struggle of building your life up and destroying it again and building it up and struggling again and destroying it again. And because that's something I made a video about recently about being addicted to the struggle, because I felt like that was a lot of what perpetuated my alcohol dependence. And I'm just wondering, do you have more to say there on what your experience was like of finding comfort in the struggle? Like how do you reflect on that and how you were finding comfort in that struggle? Because I think it's something we can all relate to, and I just love to hear your thoughts on
I'm
that.
gonna have to. I'm gonna have to check out that video. It's on your YouTube, man.
Yeah, it was like, are we addicted to the struggle or something?
I think it's a side effect of everything else being out of control in our lives. That that rebuilding process of reclaiming my life once again is something that we can actually feel as if we're in control because it doesn't take that long to get from rock bottom to employed again, get paycheck, people not looking at me as a total, you know, whatever. It doesn't take long to get from that point to semi-respectable. So it doesn't take a lot of work, but it's very rewarding to get to that point. And when everything else, long term and everything is kind of out of our control, that's one microcosmic part of our lives, that rebuilding process that we can find ultimate triumph in and success. Take a deep breath and crack a beer. You know, reward myself and start it all over again.
Yes.
But I think it's that. It's just not having that control. But that is one thing that we can control. You know, and also, you know, I went through a lot as a child coming up. Like there's past trauma there, and you know, getting to a certain point in your life and having seen the destruction you've caused in your wake and looking back, it I feel like it can do one of two things. It it cause well, it does do two things. It causes just this despair within you because as the souls that we are, like that spirit doesn't want to cause that hurt. And there's a regret and a sadness that comes along with realizing what we've done and being able to look back on that past trauma also and say you're the reason why. Oh, oh, it, I hate to use this word, but it's like we allow that to become. We point at that and we say that's why, and it allows us the justification to pour sorrow and self pity upon ourselves by indulging in the very thing that continues to cause cause us that inner turmoil.
Mhm.
Um, so that's another sign of that taking comfort in the struggle is that life continues to be a struggle living that way, and you're seeing it all around you. But we become very good at blaming others for what we have done, and of course, our medication is cure that sorrow is more alcohol,
Mhm.
which is allowing us to satisfy a desire that we have anyway. So it's very self defeating,
Yeah.
but it's also that the comfort in the struggle is the answer that allows it. The struggle is what allows us to get what we want in the end, that point in our lives, which is that drink. So it's like the more struggle we can create in our lives, the more justification we have to drink. Hey, that turned out pretty good.
Wow.
I put it back on that one. I was getting lost in it, but that worked out pretty good.
I'm glad this is being recorded. That's, yes, exactly. I can relate. Exactly. You said that so well.
It's
Yeah.
been fun.
Is there
I think
anything
you're doing
else?
a great thing with your videos.
What's that?
I think you're doing a great thing with your videos.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel, yeah, I, like you said, you want to get the word out about this, and I do too, because I know when I first learned about it, there was nobody telling their story, and I was like, this is too good to be true, other than Claudia's video. And so I hope to show people, and through interviews like this, that like there are people telling their success story from this method, and I appreciate
Absolutely.
you coming on.
The video was great. The video of One Little Pill was great. I mean, it set the groundwork for what a lot of us have been able to do in our lives, and I'm very thankful for the work that Claudia has done.
Me too.
And there was an aspect of that video where it's like, well, the courts in Finland are seeing such great results. It seemed so far removed from our lives here in the States that it almost allowed that doubt to creep in. Like, well, it's working over there, but can it work here? Like, can it work with me and my
Mhm.
buddy or whatever? And I think the groups and you putting a face to it and us putting ourselves out there to say, hey, this is what I've been through. This worked. These were the pitfalls that I ran into. Watch out for those. It, it, I just, I, it's my hope that we can continue to grow a supportive community around this.
Mhm.
Um, because my God, who would think that? Now, One Little Pill is such a great title for that because it's almost like it pokes fun at itself. But once you come out the other side of this, it's like, wow, who would have thought One Little Pill? Like, it, it's such a great title.
It is.
But I think you were getting ready to ask me, did I have anything else?
Yeah, just any other words. I feel like you do such a good job at articulating your experience in a way that's digestible. And I'm just wondering if you have any other words of wisdom or things you've learned or to share before we wrap up the interview.
I don't think so. I think you done a pretty good job of pulling my. If I had nuggets, you pulled them out. Like you took all my wisdom. So
Okay.
I think that's it. But um, anybody watching this, just come join us in the groups. If I find any more, I'll toss them to the crowd.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so, so much, Ashley. I enjoyed this so much. Yeah, I
Thank you.
appreciate it. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
And have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.